Westeros!
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle. And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners, and we got the Clash of Kings recap coming at you, hot and heavy. Fan questions for Kyle, little review, the whole deal. The whole gambit's coming at you.
It's partly to help us separate the events of the two books as well. I mean, we were talking a little internally. I know I'm confused as to where the last one ends and this one began. So,
if you haven't listened to us before, because maybe some people are listening to the first time, this is a overall discussion. Basically, what we do is we've been going through the books, doing a podcast at a chapter at a time. It started off, most of the episodes we got out there, there's 4 of us. Currently, there's only 3. Myself, as you heard, Jeff and Kyle.
Only the strong survive out there.
You say currently, but I mean, I think this is our forever future.
Winter is coming.
We'll see. I've also noticed that we've got a decent amount of people tuning in on YouTube, more than normal, probably since I think House of the Dragon got us some new subscribers. So thanks to everyone who subscribed. And if anyone didn't know, we clearly are not a video podcast. We're all audio, so we're available on anywhere you can find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. And the last little thing I'll say about like kind of what we do is Kyle, we've kind of alluded to it. Kyle has never seen the show or read the books. So he's kind of getting like a first time take for this. So got a first time book readers.
Well, you guys made me watch season 1.
That is true. And I went back and I listened to our like discussion of the first book to see like how we kind of handled that one to try and make this one be the same. And that one was basically just like comparing the book and the show for the most part. We were all over the place. Hopefully we've gotten a little more organized over time. I'm not sure. But listening to that one was kind of...
I'm sure I was still really good on that podcast.
You were, yeah. Jeff's 10 out of 10 on every podcast. The rest of us is very...
Just a gamer. I just show up. So where are we going now? So we going POV or timeline? What's the...
So what we did last time was we kind of went through the book, and I think kind of like to Kyle's point, we might want to do this, start off this way too, and just kind of go through each person's POV and like where the POVs are in the same location. We can just go through like the storyline in that location. Just kind of get a quick recap. I think it took us like 20-25 minutes last time to do that. And then we jumped into like favorite character, favorite plot line, that kind of stuff. And we do have some questions written in from the fans.
Oh, man.
Appreciate the fans. So, yeah, we'll get into that towards the end.
All right, where are we starting now? So what land?
So I guess one thing that we can start off with is I noticed at the end of the last one, we were talking about like favorite characters and stuff. We kind of all had a consensus that Ned was probably the most fun POV to read, right? And that POV is gone now.
Was it the most fun or was it the most action?
Well, I think when we said like favorite character, I think what Kyle had actually said was Bronn in the first book. But like in terms of like best POV to read, I think what you had asked was like when you flipped the page and you saw like, oh, the next chapter is this person, which name got you most excited? And I think like Ned was the one there. So like not necessarily favorite character, but just like there was a lot of stuff going on in his chapters.
Yeah.
And I'll let Kyle take it away real quick. Because again, we covered a little bit of this in like at the end of like the last few podcasts we've done, like at the end of the last brand, we kind of had some big open-ended questions. But the one that I'll let Kyle take it away with is, I guess between the two books, which one was your favorite? And again, it's like kind of hard to compare that, right? And you said we don't even know where they stopped. And
that was actually what I said to you earlier. Was can you please start with a recap of where we started this book and where we end? Like I mean that kind of thing. Because I said, I mean I know roughly where it stopped, but like so Theon and Robb, they were just about to break up at the end of the last book, right? Like not break up, but like split up.
Yes, exactly. So,
and then Theon started this one kind of on the road to the Iron Islands. Is that where he's from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Ned got his head chopped off. Arya escaped with Yoren.
That wasn't the very end of the last book, though.
I mean, it was. I'm just saying where Arya was going. Arya was leaving.
Yep, her getting out of King's Landing. Tyrion was basically coming into King's Landing. He hadn't entered it. His first chapter is him coming in. I think we actually see him enter King's Landing in the first Sansa chapter of this book. It's Joffrey's birthday. It's where Dantos is too drunk. Tyrion comes in at the end of that one. So yeah, like when you're thinking of the King's Landing stuff, what happens? The Ned death, you're right that it's not really the end. There's like more stuff that happens a little bit after that. Like I think we get a Sansa chapter like wrap up, kind of like how at the end of this one, the Blackwater isn't the last thing. There's a Sansa and a Tyrion chapter after the Blackwater, but for all intents and purposes, when we're talking about the next book, we can take the Blackwater as like the stopping point for this book. You know what I mean? Especially for the King's Landing stuff. The Riverland stuff.
I was gonna say, where was Cat at in the beginning?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're talking about with the Theon stuff, right? Cat had basically got their foothold. They got River Run back, right? Because they had done the Whispering Wood, then the Battle of the Camps, which is where they like break the siege on River Run. They come back in there. That's kind of where it ends there. And I think Kyle said it. It's where it starts here. They're like, okay, what do we do? What's going to happen with this war? And one of the first decisions they make is send Theon off. And that's kind of where bang, new POV, Theon chapters. Davos is the other new POV we get this book, right? So he's kind of completely removed from everything else until the very end. And even then, he's the other side of the battle. It's not like he's interacting with any characters.
Yeah, and he doesn't even make it in. I mean, to not call that ship battle a battle is a disservice, but I mean, he doesn't even make it into the battle, really. Like,
yeah, never makes landfall.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so then we got Jon. His story, basically, again, it wraps up pretty good at the end of the last book. He's really conflicted. He's like, I'm joining the Night's Watch, joins the Night's Watch, says his vows, and as soon as he says his vows...
Brothers need me, family needs me.
Exactly. Everything kicks off. He tries to escape. He gets brought back.
But then a dead hand shows up.
That stuff's all kind of happening at the same time that Jon has this inner conflict. And then at the very end, Mormont's like, we're going north of the wall. Get your shit together. Are you a boy who wants to play at war? Or are you a man of the Night's Watch?
And that was the end of Game of Thrones.
The very last chapter was the Dany giving birth to...
No. For Jon, that was the end of Game of Thrones.
Yes. Yep. That was his very last one.
We're about to go north of the wall. You with us, or are you going somewhere else? Yeah.
Yep. And then his first one is he talks to Sam, who was down like making maps or whatever. Right?
Yep.
And then they go and talk to Mormont. And the second chapter, they're out. And Jon's been north of the wall since his second chapter.
Well, you guys were just talking about the hand, and I was like, wait, I thought that happened in the first book, but you weren't. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Tell me about my girl, Dany.
And Dany, so
she went
birth
east
to dragons. She's stuck in the desert for a while, and then she shows up in Karth, and that's basically her whole storyline this time. A lot of people don't like Dany's storyline in this book too much.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't really do shit. Like I said, she went east.
How many chapters? 5?
5 chapters for Dany.
That's really all she did, right?
It's not enough. It's just not enough. Tyrion had what, 15?
Yeah.
14?
Well, I guess she did more. She destroyed the wizard or the warlocks and all that shit, but it was a lot of walking. Yes. And
so we kind of just went through like where it starts and ends. Mm-hmm. I just did a lot of talking, so I'll let Kyle talk a little bit about like what's your favorite book. Again, like favorite book might be a weird way to say it. We kind of talked a little bit about it in the last
book.
One.
Well, so now that we kind of went through all that, and I remember a lot more of this book, I think I'm back to the first one being my more favorite book. I don't know. I felt like a lot more of this one was more interesting. I think at the end of the Brand podcast, I kind of went into that this book was a better story. And I do still agree with that. There's a lot of build up and a lot of payoff at the end. Whereas I feel like the first one was kind of just, I don't want to say more scattered, but I felt like it was not as like a turning point in the middle of the book or toward 3/4 through where it was like stuff started kicking off and like we've been waiting for the whole time. I mean, I was kind of waiting for Ned to die because I knew it was coming, but like there still wasn't that moment, of like, all right, everything snapped. The build up, all the payoff kind of came through. I mean, I guess there's a little bit of that with like Ned's investigation into Bobby's kids and all that. Like that's really the main build in that last book. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's just what I'm remembering, I guess. Like, what would you say then?
I think you're right. I think one thing that I would disagree with that you said is that I feel like the first book, and I feel like this is probably why a lot of people do think the first one is in general better. It feels like more like one story. Where Clash of Kings, I really like Clash of Kings, but it feels like a bunch of different stories, right? Like the Bran and Theon stuff kind of I like that story. It's really interesting. You've heard me talk about it a lot. I think that's super interesting. Like the inner conflict with Theon, the shit that Bran's going through at Winterfell. I think the magic-y stuff there is cool, but that seems very, very disconnected to anything Sansa and Tyrion are going through. Like, yeah, we get like Sansa gets word about that. And Catelyn's kind of in the middle of everything where everything kind of matters to her. She cares about what's going on in King's Landing. She cares about Winterfell.
I think
for the most part, it's like disconnected, especially when you get to Jon and Dany and Davos, right? Those 3 characters are basically all different, like disconnected. Game of Thrones, you get that where people are all over the place, but they're all talking about the same thing, right? For the most part, it's like what's going on in King's Landing.
Yeah, I think to Nelson's point with Game of Thrones, you had Cat and Tyrion who were in Winterfell, the Vale, King's Landing, or at least Cat took those paths. Like people moved around a lot more. So I think that's kind of why the story kind of was more fluid because it was the same people but moving around, where this time like Winterfell was only Theon Bran, King's Landing was only Sansa Tyrion. You know, like it wasn't like Kat had a chapter in King's Landing. She was kind of in the Riverlands the whole time, and etc.
Well, I feel like Kat again moves around a lot. Maybe not as much as in the first book, but she does go down to Renly and back,
which is like the Reach maybe or Stormlands, but
yeah,
she was there for like a month or like a minute.
Yeah, it was brief.
She has this cool role, I feel like, kind of in both books, where she is kind of a thread that ties everyone together. Right? In the first book, she goes from Winterfell down to King's Landing, sees Ned.
She's more mobile out of everybody, yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely not as mobile as the first book, which was my whole point. Which was my point.
For sure. She's all over the place. But my point is, even in this book, who does she talk to, I guess, other POV characters-wise? No one, right? Does she talk to another single POV character?
No.
I don't think so.
So
but
she doesn't
like,
do the
really
tie thread,
than...
but she's tying the storylines between Riverrun, and she's the only actual boots on the ground we get at the Storm's End stuff. I mean, I guess Davos is there after the fact, but...
Sure. I mean, that's just like 2. I'm saying that the last one, she was in like 5 different spots, and
yeah.
You know, how many people did she run into? She was with Littlefinger, and she was with Tyrion, and she was with her sister, and she was at Winterfell, and then she was at King's Landing, and blah blah blah. You know.
Yeah. So we're jumping around a little bit. Let's go. We've been doing a little bit, but let's go through kind of just like each character's POV. We just did the Cat one. So yeah, she starts off in Riverrun. She takes her trip down to Renly. I think all that's cool, right? Like, so Kyle, this was probably like I don't know. Assume things for you, but I'm guessing the Renly stuff was pretty unexpected for you.
Yeah. So I definitely didn't know that he died here, and I wasn't expecting Stannis's method of killing him either.
Shadow.
Yeah, the Shadow Schmishmortion.
That's really cool. I was glad that you were not spoiled on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few more probably like major points. Maybe one more major point that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That's upsetting.
Well, don't say it now. Maybe we'll say it at the end. That way, just in case anyone else is listening on their first time.
Yeah. And other than that, then I really don't think there's much else that I at least know.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, she counsels Rob. She's with her pop. We kind of find out some childhood stuff. But like I always say, like Kat's chapters are interesting because the shit that she sees, not because she's interesting.
I was gonna say, yeah, you always say her chapters are super interesting.
No, you have said that before. Like and I think in this one, I think it's true. Like some of the best scenes in the book we get are from Kat. This isn't one of the best scenes, I don't think, but Rob getting named king is up there. It's a pretty cool scene. Like when everyone's like, "Yeah, we're all for this guy."
Well, yeah, we wouldn't have had another person present. So
then she's the one at the meeting with Stannis and Renly, right? See, we only ever see them talk together. The whole Peach thing, I love that. And then her last chapter, while it's pretty much just like a wrap up, get news. That conversation she has with Jaime, where they talk about like, we get an info dump on Jaime's like, there are no men like me, right? She brings the wine down to him. We're talking about some of the history, what happened with Robert's Rebellion, and how Kat was supposed to marry Ned's brother. So to your point, Jeff, I agree that I wouldn't say Kat is on my top 5 list of characters, but her POVs are awesome. And in this book, I think it continues. She sees cool stuff.
I mean, I think that's just the nature of her being a middle-aged mother, or I don't know, middle-aged in these times mother, you know, like she's not a warrior. We have warrior point of view chapters, you know, it's a little much to expect her to be doing stuff like that, I guess is where I'm at.
Yeah. Speaking of warriors, we got the introduction of a new warrior along the Kat POV line. This story we didn't mention yet.
Brienne of Toth.
Brienne, oh yeah.
Kat's new personal bodyguard, I guess, right?
Yep.
Even though she let one king die.
It's totally her fault. Brienne, yeah. So she was the color guard,
Rainbow Guard,
or the Rainbow Guard, whatever. And yeah, no. So now she's sworn fealty to Kat, pretty much. Like I will serve you. So it'll be interesting to see. She seems pretty awesome, right? Like.
So I guess as we go through each POV, we'll at the end of it we'll get a little prediction from Kyle.
All right.
So where we left off was her with Jaime, talking to Jaime. Jaime seemed to be pushing her buttons, and she asked Brienne to give her sword, and then it cuts. Like Jaime's really pushing her buttons. She's like, Brienne, give me your sword, and then cut.
I don't think Jaime's dead, if that's your question here.
Okay, I mean, it's kind of what is implied, I feel like, by the chapter, is that's Kat is being pushed to that.
Well, obviously, I mean, but I feel like that's kind of like a plot device. Like, Oh,
The
cut to
question is,
black.
what do you think happens? What happens with Kat at the beginning of the next book? I guess.
I mean,
What does she do with that said sword?
hopefully we get a Walking Dead moment where the next episode is she just, smashes Jamie's head in and his eye pops out and stuff. That's what we're hoping for. But no, I don't know. I feel like if they off Jamie, it is counterintuitive to their plans here, right? Like he's a huge chip at this point. He's something they have, and they still have her daughters.
For sure. We've talked about that at nauseum of
Yeah, I'm
how
sure.
important Jamie is.
But it didn't stop Joffrey. Ned was a big chip too.
Sure. And we heard how big of
But
a
Kat isn't Joffrey.
mistake, like at least other than Joffrey, what they thought of that play.
Yeah, I know. I you know me, I throw in the devil's advocate comment just for the hell of it. All right, so unless we got anything else to say for Kat, like on the recap stuff, we'll jump to Davos because he's short one.
I guess just one last thing with Kat was like her dad's health is failing.
True. Yes. Not good.
Yeah, and Edmure is taking over, right? That's her brother.
That's kind of a thread in the last Cat chapter too. That she's pissed that people keep calling Edmure Lord, and she's like, "Yo, the Lord's right here."
Dad's still alive. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Davos it is.
And before we jump into Davos, let's talk about the prologue because we haven't talked about that yet, and it fits perfectly with Davos. Basically, it's kind of like our first Davos chapter.
For sure. Yeah, that's a Stannis chapter, which Davos is Stannis chapters essentially.
Yeah. So in that one, we get our boy Crescent. Second POV where the second prologue where the main character doesn't make it out.
Deuces Crescent.
I think it's a dope chapter, right? I think Kyle picked up on some cool stuff in it. He's trying to poison the Red Woman. We get introduced to a bunch of cool new characters: Stannis, Davos, Melisandre, Stannis' child Shireen, and Patchface, Shireen's full buddy, who's
really
tattooed full.
Awesome, super cool.
See, but he's really strange. I mean, he was drowned
really
for a while, and then he popped out of the
3
ocean,
days,
and
exactly. So, cool chapter. Anything to say on the prologue before we jump into the Davos stuff? Either of you guys?
we did a prologue episode.
Yeah, it's been a while ago.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Crescent tried to go out like a champ, but it failed.
Didn't we figured this out? I mean, we should probably put this at the beginning, but how long did it take us to read this book?
Year and a half.
Something like
Started
that.
in July. This will come out. This one will be
boy.
ended November. So yeah, Davos, this book only gets 3. He continues the Stannis storyline, and he only gets 3 chapters, right? So it's basically him where they're burning the gods, him at Storm's End for the Courtney Penrose meeting, and then the battle.
Yeah.
So he's actually not in it that much.
Right.
Yeah, no, he was. That was a letdown, I say, of this one, I think, is that he seemed like he was, level-headed and would have been fun to follow around for a little while.
Yeah. Did he have any other missions, or like was he sent out that we just didn't see at all, or
He goes out with Melisandre at the end of the Courtney Penrose chapter, if that's what you're asking. He rows the boat, right?
right. But we get him rowing the boat, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. Up to the gate.
They get in there and he sees the shadow baby.
Yeah.
And then it slipped through the gate, and that was the end of that chapter, pretty much.
Yeah, so he's cool. One of the cool things about Davos is he's like the only, correct me if I'm wrong, the only one that's not highborn, right? The only POV we get that's not highborn.
Which was another kind of interesting side of him.
It's true.
For sure.
It gives me the little bit of Dunk vibes, right?
Well, he was humble. Like he's the one guy that like
He was relatable.
I don't even deserve what I have right now. Like Stannis chopped my fingers off and I deserved it type of thing.
Yeah.
Like nobody would think that way.
I mean, also, to that point, just a super interesting backstory, right? Like just like as you learn about him, like why is this guy who got his finger chopped off by Stannis this loyal, like to Stannis? It's like, and again, it's how you learn about Stannis. Like Stannis has a very
black and white.
It's not
outlook.
weird, but it's a unique worldview, right? Where it's like we follow the rules no matter what. You were good and bad, so you get punishment and reward. Where most people would not play it like that, right? Which one was worse, your crime or your good deed? And that's just what's going to happen.
What was his crime? It was all past crimes, right?
He was smug. He was a smuggler.
Yeah, for years and years, and then he smuggled good for them, and that was what I thought.
Smuggled to save them.
Where his story ends,
Davos gets exploded up, right? The ship explodes under his feet.
Yep. So Kyle, I guess what's up with where do you think we're going to see Davos? Will we ever see Davos again?
I mean, I'm still hoping he's alive. He didn't die.
Okay.
Shit went crazy. He got picked up by one of those who was out there further.
Salvador San.
And what were the Lysine? Lysine?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Salvador was his old pirate boy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the pirate. You get the sense that he would do the pirating, Davos would do the smuggling. They were like a 1-2 punch, the two of them.
Yep, that's my prediction for him.
All right, cool.
Who's next?
Let's do the outskirt ones first. So John or Danny, pick one, whichever one you guys
Do
want.
Danny.
They're both
her out of
pretty
the way.
quick, I think.
Yeah, so we'll do Danny. She starts off.
Danny has dragons. She's walking through the red waste. Her people are dying. She's got like 20 left. They make it to Karth.
Well, they find that white city first, right?
Yeah.
They do find like an abandoned city that like is kind of their savior. It's got water
An
and
orchard.
Like,
Some
trees.
fruit, yeah.
Yeah.
But kind of weird.
Very strange.
And then they get the Karth.
Yep.
And there's one boob out per person.
That's Karth.
Everybody wants to see the dragons. They're getting like gifts and shit to see it, right? They're almost like charging a tax, like an autograph fee to see the dragons.
She's famous. When she shows up, she's famous. She's giving her stuff, and then
She runs into the warlocks, or she's trying to get.
Well,
shit,
she goes
right?
to meet
Yeah,
with
yeah.
3 different groups.
Nobody's giving her shit.
And the one is like the government, essentially, is kind of how it feels. It's like the Senate, maybe, and she tries to bribe all them off. They say no. The next one is, who's the next one?
It's the Spicers, the
Torment
7,
Brotherhood, and the 13.
13.
Right. Yeah, but she basically spends all her money from all the gifts she had no money, so all the gifts she got, she converted to money and then paid off these 13, and then they just said no. So then she was like, "Well, I don't have any money anymore," and they said no. So now what am I supposed to do? So yeah, she was kind of back against the wall. That forced her to go to the Warlocks, where we get one of the weirdest chapters, probably the weirdest chapter in both
Easily.
books so
For
far.
sure.
Ever.
Yeah.
House of the Undying, just a ton of weird visions and stuff. Weird zombie people at a table.
There's a floating heart over the
heart
table
is
that
blue and
Drogon then eats.
yeah, that happens. And then at the end, her last chapter is 2 people, Whitebeard and Strong Belwash, show up, and they've been sent from Illyrio, and they're like, "Yo, we got 3 ships, and Illyrio wants us to take
Let's
you back
go.
to them. Let's go." And she's like, "Awesome, but we're renaming the ships after dragons."
And we ride.
And that's pretty much where Danny's story's at. Yeah, so
Kyle, thoughts, Danny?
I mean, the prediction there is just that she goes back to Illyria. There was no real conflict in her story yet, other than, like getting out of the city and what's she going to do next. And I feel like her path forward here is pretty straight.
yeah.
The only problem is going to be getting these people on the boat, but I feel like
They're going to be scared.
that's kind of the beginning of this where they get used to it. That's where we're at. Like I said, I don't know that there's an exciting prediction in there.
Did you like the story going east and shit like that?
I mean, we talked about it. It was kind of slow. There was some points that weren't, but like the House of the Undying, I think, is probably the only real highlight of that one. Otherwise, it was, Danny went east.
Yeah, super disconnected for sure.
I mean, one thing we can kind of touch on along the Danny stuff is we kind of learned this book through Danny and a few other people mentioning that it seems like magic is coming back. And like whether dragons are bringing the magic back, magic brought the dragons back, the Red Comet brought everything back. Like the Red Comet's another big thing for like the whole first half of the book. I know we haven't talked about it for like a year, but
it's mentioned in like the first half of every chapter.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because it just kind of stopped getting mentioned and we eventually just kind of stopped mentioning it as well.
Yeah.
The cool part about the Red Comet is that everybody had its own reason for it and different names for it, and it was all being shifted to their reasoning, which I
well, of
enjoyed.
course, I think that's any sign, right? Like, and I think that's kind of the point here.
I guess in me asking the question, I'm kind of alluding to me believing that the comet has something to do with magic. Is that kind of where you guys are at? That's kind of where I'm at, and maybe that's just like me, like kind of just picking on my own.
I just don't know any history of like other comets that have shown up. Like, do you know what I mean?
I just know that the comet came and the dragons came at the weird time, and everybody are talking about magic.
Dragons
now.
were born, comets came, and now fire ladders and shit. Like, yeah, it seems very hand in hand.
It kind of gets to the chicken and the egg problem. If people are saying dragons bring the magic, well then what brought the dragons?
Sure.
And like what hatched the egg? And the first thing Danny notices when the dragons are hatched is the comet. So
Yeah, like was there
But-
another red comet or like a blue comet that I don't know that started like the sea fucking
I was going to say that
having hurricanes and shit or something like that?
dragons really haven't been in the possession of Targaryens lately either. So like maybe she was the chosen one. Maybe it's just Danny that brought him back. So I don't know. Like I don't know the whole backstory on that again yet. And like I do know that they probably talked about it and I missed it or forgot it. But when was the last dragon?
150-ish years ago.
Yeah, so I mean that's a couple generations, right? So like
Yeah, like 6 or 7, I think. Maybe more than that, actually, because some of them didn't rule.
they were getting smaller though, so I don't know.
Are you
like,
sure
I mean,
it's more than that, Nelson?
Yeah.
I'd have to. I guess I'll talk to.
Well, and we've definitely heard of at least one Targaryen trying to hatch dragons since then, right? Like, there's the one guy who drank wildfire. I guess maybe that's not him hatching dragons. It's him trying to turn himself into a dragon. But yeah, so there have been like people who have been Targaryens not trying to do this type of stuff, mess with dragon shit since then too. That kind of gives like some credence to the whole. Yeah, Dany is just somewhat special. Which is definitely something that the fandoms think about too.
Well, she's been pitched as special since day one, right? Like,
I mean, not really. She was the sister of the brother.
100%. No, and
She
then
was the
I mean,
sister of
like
the
she
brother.
was.
The brother was the heir. She was.
I know,
like,
but then
getting,
they like married her off to the
day one. She was getting
and,
married off to the horse lord.
Yeah, and then what happened there?
Yeah, but because she was special.
Yeah,
because she had like Valyrian blood.
I mean, it wasn't because she was like the chosen one of it all. It was because she was.
But then they were going to have this crazy baby and all. Like, I mean, she's been pretty special for a while.
It ended up being that way, but from the beginning is all I'm saying was she was basically a bargaining chip for Viserys to get an army, not for her to be a Khaleesi and to have this baby and for her to have dragons. Like, it was more for Viserys at the beginning. Now, right. Viserys was a schlub. And she wasn't, and Drogo, obviously fell in love with her too, but it didn't start that way.
Gotcha. So yeah, I don't have anything else for Dany.
Moving on, Jon.
So on to Jon.
Cold.
So yeah, we kind of talked about it a little bit. He's basically north of the wall the whole time. So he stops at a small village, White Tree. It's deserted. We meet Dolores Head. He's the best. We get to Craster's. See some shit with Craster.
A lot of girls,
and they're his daughters. And
don't touch them.
Don't touch him. Yep, just for him.
There's a pregnant one there. There's a pregnant one there.
Then we get to the first men. Jon finds dragonglass in like a hidden cache. Kyle even mentioned this, that he had not forgotten this.
I know. I didn't want you to think I did.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Jon finds this. Then he gets picked to go on the mission. Corrin shows up. He's on the mission. They go to Skirling Pass. They attack some wildlings. Jon lets one go.
You agree?
They run. He has wolf dreams of Bran, and then he goes over to the wildlings at the end.
Yeah, and we went into this pretty in depth.
Traitor.
I think a lot of that last episode. So
yeah, and I think this is like one of the ones. It's a really cool story. Like again, Jon, I feel like both books has had like a. If you look at I feel like you could read just his chapters and get like a pretty cool storyline. You know what I mean? Like he goes through a progression himself.
Well, right? For sure. I mean, even if there was no warring south, right? Like I think that would still be a fun read of this group that protects the wall around just a single kingdom or something, and this shit's outside. Yeah. I think that would be a fun story in itself.
Exactly. So where we left him is he's going over the wildlings. And again, I don't know if we got any predictions. I'm sure we got something from you, but in general predictions, what do you think about?
I told you already. I think he finds Benjen. That's where I'm at.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I think that's the biggest thing I can say.
Was Uncle Benny a traitor too, or?
I mean, I don't think either of them are traitors.
Is Uncle Benny faking being a traitor?
I mean, I don't know. I met the dude once, a long time ago, so I don't know his intentions. I don't think he's a traitor. No.
Jon walks in to meet Mance Rayder, and it's Benjen.
Wow.
We heard of Benjen before the book started, or we heard about Mance Rayder like in the very first chapter, like the wildlings going north. We're talking like.
I think Ned has mentioned Mance Rayder too. I think, or somebody that knew.
Yeah, but Benjen could be like just putting on a hat. You know what I mean? And like, I'm going on a ranging. I'll be back in a month. And like,
I'll be back later.
Mormont doesn't notice that it's the same guy. I feel like he has.
Mance Rayder, we knew Mance Rayder was on the wall before, so we know that that's not true.
That's true. Yeah, he was in the Night's Watch. Yep.
Yeah, Benjen was too, Jeff.
I'm saying that's how he knows that it's two different people.
Who knows?
They were.
You ever see him in the room together?
Well, that's what I think Jeff's saying. Because they're both on the wall, theoretically, Mormont could have been in a room with both of them at the same time.
But maybe he wasn't.
Maybe not.
We don't know that.
All right, so next character we'll go to is how about Arya? Because she is kind of in the middle of the continent, but she's also by herself pretty much the entire time in terms of other POV
yeah,
characters.
So they're on the road. They make it to some stronghold little town, get raided in the middle of the night by what's his name?
The Mountain.
No. They get raided by some dude. She's with the Night's Watchman.
Oh, Amory Lorch.
Amory Lorch.
Amory Lorch. Yep.
Then she has to go on the run again because she escapes after freeing Biter and Rourke and what's his name?
Jaqen Hagar.
Jaqen, yeah.
Before they get in
the gold cloaks get sent up north,
Yes.
and they're looking for the boy with the bull's head helmet.
Yep, exactly. That was the only thing I was going to say.
It's very early. Yep.
So then they get captured. There's some really shitty days where Arya has with, like you said, the tickler, torturing people. They're in the holdfast. Lami's all about yielding. He gets a spear in the throat for that.
Well, they get captured then trying to scout that other town, right?
Yeah, Lami's like, let's just yield because he's already hurt. He got hurt in the battle.
I know.
He's
Well,
like,
we
"Let's
didn't.
just
We
yield."
kind of skipped right to them being captured. That's all. I was trying to fill in the gap there.
Gendry, Hot Pie gets them captured. Well, Gendry gets captured.
Yeah.
And then Arya goes back to get Hot Pie. Hot Pie gets them captured on their slow sneak attempt mission. They're all fucked. There's Alfred Joffrey, he doesn't live very long, but he's one of the guys that he just keeps saying, all for Joffrey, my son's in the army, all for Joffrey. And then like they killed Alfred Joffrey on the 5th day or something like that. Is how it goes.
It's a weird detail for you to remember.
I don't know. I love that. For some reason, I love that guy. But yeah, she's just in a bad situation. She gets taken to Harrenhal where things get worse. We meet Weiss, but we also, Jaqen shows up and
Does he show up or was he already there?
He showed up as one of the mummers or something later on.
Exactly. He had like joined them. I think joined Armory Lorch. Yeah.
Because they came back, right? And then they left and then they came back again and it was like, oh shit, here's Biter and Rorg and Jaqen. Because they were, yeah, like you said, they joined rather than get killed.
Yep. And so she gets these 3 names.
Because she saved Jaqen.
Yes, because she saved Jaqen. Because Jaqen's a weirdo and is just like, I'm going to murder 3 people because you saved me.
Well, he's like, you saved 3 lives that should have been dead, so 3 lives need to die. It's balance.
Yep. And so while she's there, we get Tywin, right? I think is the only actual person. Like, so Tywin's one of those really cool characters where he's a huge player, like making huge moves of like everything we're reading about is very influenced.
He's a
by
fucking
him.
general in like a massive army.
Of the one of the 2, I guess there's 4, but the biggest of the 4, or
I think probably one of the most powerful people at the moment. Like just in terms of his family currently is really powerful. He's rich, army. They're in the middle of a war, but like not only don't we get POVs from him, but like we literally see him, I think twice in the first book, both times in Tyrion chapters,
Tyrion.
and maybe here twice, but here they're just like in passing.
I remember him
like from afar with Arya.
Yeah, they like see him like in his window or
exactly. But he's here for most of the book, I think, right?
Half of it.
I feel like he shows up like after they're getting interrogated, right? So
that's how it is in the show. I don't know if that's how it goes.
No, I think he was here to begin with. Like when she gets sent here, he's already here.
He's already here. I think so. I think you're right.
He doesn't ask the mountain to stop killing the prisoners.
I think that's only a show.
Well, so he was here, and then she started doing her killing. It was pretty much after he left, though, right? Like, or during him leaving.
Well, yeah, he's leaving, and she's in the middle of using her second death, and she's like, "Oh, fuck."
Who was the first one?
Why didn't I name him? The person she was working for.
Weiss.
No, that was the second
Yeah,
one.
I
The
thought
first one
so.
was a guy named Chiswick, just because she brought food up, and Chiswick tells this really horrible story about like gang rape and how they were all laughing.
Yeah,
about
raping
it.
a tavern wench or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all laughing about it. Yeah, so she gets pissed and just like out of emotion. I think that night he comes is like, I can kill anyone. And she's like, Chiswick. Kills so something happens like that. She kills Chiswick. Second one is Weiss, which is the guy she works for, and that is like she had already said Weiss, and then she is like watching Tywin leave, and she's thinking, and she's like, "Fuck, I'm an idiot. Like, why am I wasting these?"
Cersei,
The mountain, Cersei, Weiss, or not Weiss, Tywin, or Jaime, or any of them.
And she goes to run and try and find Jaqen, but on the way to find Jaqen, we see that Weiss has like been attacked,
getting his face eaten by his dog.
Yeah, exactly.
His own dog.
So then her last name is him.
Jaqen.
As in Jaqen.
As in Jaqen. Because right now, like, him is a big word in pop culture. Like, oh, he is him.
I don't know what that means.
What?
You see them? Like, say Nelson's a Packers fan. He would be like, Aaron Rodgers is him. It's like if you're, it's like you're the GOAT now. Like, you're not the GOAT anymore. You're him.
That's dumb. But she names Jaqen Hagar because she's basically getting the outsmarting the 3 wishes genie trick, right? I want more wishes.
Well, no. So it started with, she's like, I don't want you to kill anybody. I want you to free the Northmen. And he's like, no, that's not why we're here.
Well, he says that would take more than 1 death.
Exactly.
And she's like, I don't care. That's what I need. And she's like, I need to get more deaths. And so she tricks him.
Yeah, she pretty much she knows he's not. I mean, he'd be. I mean, she goes into it with him where he's like, I'd be honor bound to kill whoever you name, yada yada yada. And she's like, well, even Jockin? He's like, yes, but please fucking don't say Jockin. And then she says Jockin.
Yep. So then they free the Northmen with the whole Weasel Suit plan. Bolton's take over. Last chapter is her escaping Harrenhal after she talks with Roose Bolton, finds out that Varga Hoat will be given the castle if things keep going.
Yeah, Bolton's leaving too, exactly, and then it's going to go to the Mummer, who is scary, just as scary as Tywin, essentially.
Well, maybe worse because he chops off people's feet and stuff, right? Like Arya tells.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a code to live by, really.
So she's out, right? So this is another cool one. I feel again like we've kind of gone through it. I feel like a lot of these characters are on cliffhangery endings, right? John's over with the Wildlings. Arya's escaping Harrenhal. Where's she going?
For sure. I mean, you have no clue where they're going.
So, Kyle, any thoughts on that?
We know Arya stole a map, Kyle, if you remember that.
Yeah, and she's trying to get to the River Ends. I'd like to see her get to her mom. I think that would be an interesting story. I don't think it's going to be that easy.
All right.
I think, if you want an actual prediction of any sort, I think she finds Nymeria.
Okay, that's cool. Because we do keep getting whispers of wolves and stuff, and nothing
Yeah, and I've been saying that for a while, not as an official prediction, but here it is.
Huge pack.
And I still stand by that. Nymeria saves her from something. She's like, "Oh fuck, it's you."
That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, so I think the last 2. There's 4 more characters, but it's kind of
Tyrion,
together.
Sansa.
Tyrion, Sansa, or Theon, Bran.
Let's
Bran
go.
and Theon do start separately and then come together for the second half of the
Do
book.
them.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too.
Bran, again, we kind of said this. I think because I was re-listening to our first Game of Thrones discussion, and I think Kyle said it really well, and I agree with what you were saying. And I think it's kind of like that for Bran in the first half of this one, where not as much, but in a little bit, where he's kind of just like a narrator, a point of view, just to be a fly on the wall in Winterfell, so we can know what's going on up north because no one else is there right now.
And while you're saying that, that's kind of Kat's role as well. I mean,
Sure.
we had that discussion tonight, and I mean that's a good way to put it.
She's the eyes that travels. Bran is still up there.
One thing I will say with Bran that starts happening in this book is again the magic-y stuff. If that's what you want to call what's happening with Bran, and it's supernatural, whatever, right? He's having dreams through wolf eyes and can now control like a wolf in some aspect.
And I think his storyline changes when the Reeds show up, right?
Yes, that's like a big turning point. Which again, this is something that's different in the show. It's like totally weird in the show. Like it makes the Reeds even more weird. Like basically all this happens with just Bran and Osha, and then as soon as they're outside of Winterfell, the Reeds just like show up. Like, I think it's like it would literally be like the last Bran chapter, like when Bran looks back at the burning castle, if just like 2 random people walked out of the woods and they're like, "Hey, what's up? We're here now." And like, "What? Where are you 2 coming from?" He's like, "We have weird dreams. We know who you are, Bran." It's like they're way more like creepy and mysticky right from the get-go. Where like in the books, they show up at a feast when all the lords in the north have been invited,
hanging out like being friends, right?
And he knew of them. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah. So
they are definitely the dude is the character that plays him in the show is just a weird guy in general. I feel like he's just a weird.
Well, even in the books, he's meant to be kind of weird, right? Like his nickname is Little Grandfather or something because old man says he acts like really solemn and too mature for his age, right? But yeah, so that's kind of like the beginning part of the Bran storyline mixed with we hear at that feast, right? Some of the Lady Hornwood stuff, which kind of comes back to
the bastard of Bolton.
They send Roderick out, and then we capture Reek and kill the bastard of Bolton, which is
wrong.
Again, comes back up at the end of the book.
Lies. Theon goes and sees daddy
and sister.
Yeah, so I've told Jeff this before, and I'll just get it out there now before we get into Theon stuff. Is I think, and this will be a question for you guys too later. I think Theon has the best story. Clearly not my favorite character. He's like a horrible person, but I think he has the best, most interesting story.
I mean, I feel like your favorite character can be a horrible person. It doesn't just because they're your favorite character doesn't mean you want to be like them.
I'm clarifying for the listeners that I don't want to be like
what
Theon.
You support a rapist,
but I think he's so
kid
interesting.
murderer.
And I think he's one of the characters that a lot of people, especially like on a first read, don't like reading Theon. They're like what a dickhead. I don't like you. Like, give me like Ned. I can't believe they took Ned and gave me Theon. Like, this is like, what a shitty trade. Right? Like, kind of like we were talking, Ned was our favorite person to read in the second one. I think Theon in the first one, I think Theon is just as interesting for Ned, but in completely different reasons.
He's super conflicted, and he's trying to like be somebody he's not and
prove himself.
I've agreed with Nelson. I think we've talked about this on spoiler sections. Like, he is super.
It's in a tough spot.
Deep.
He's in a tough spot.
Yeah. He just keeps digging himself deeper too, and you could you get to see inside his mind, and he's digging himself deeper. It's like, well, you're a fucking idiot. So.
And him being an idiot is what makes him interesting. Like, if he was Jon and he just like did like, you know what I mean? Like, Jon is put in put in tough choices all the time, but because Theon does the wrong thing, it just snowballs into more interesting stuff.
I mean, every time
what would happen
if
Jon didn't go back to the wall? Like, that would be an interesting storyline to follow, right? If Jon did the dishonorable thing, right? And just like went and helped Robb, because then Robb gets to him and does he have to, like, you know what I mean? Like,
every time you start to feel bad for Theon, he then
he reminds you why you hated him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that he was my favorite, but I struggle to think of who is.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he is. I didn't hate reading his chapters. I mean, he like you said, he has that very interesting internal conflict that he's going through. And
I think I have a pretty easy one for favorite of this book.
I know you're gonna say. Let's just wait. I don't think we've even done him yet, Jeff. So let's just give it 1 second, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. So for Theon, so basically he goes back, meets his family, has a meeting with his dad, his uncle Victarion, and his sister.
Grabs his sister's boobs.
His sister and his uncle are both given like good jobs. Go take Mo Kalen. You go take Deepwood Mott. Theon, you take one boat. He has more than one boat. In the books, it's one boat. But
raid the Stony Shores.
And your uncle's going with you. Your other uncle, the Damp Bear. So you're kind of getting babysat. And the one character that we probably haven't heard in a while that I like that is with Theon is this character, Cleftjaw.
Axe face.
Goat.
We kind of find out that he was kind of like an actual father figure to Theon. Like, he was like Theon remembers him like smiling when Theon would get a throwing axe stuck in the target or whatever, right? He was like the one who was proud of Theon for a lot of the stuff that I guess he didn't feel that from his father. So, yeah. So Theon sets up this whole plan. How does he take Winterfell?
At night, right? He just like takes the walls.
He raids one castle to lure Roderick there.
Oh, that's right.
Pulls the reach around.
Sends Cleftjaw down to that other castle. Yep.
Exactly. And then when Roderick goes, he takes Winterfell. Exactly. So then that's when the Theon and Bran chapters collide. And kind of at the same time, Bran is coming into his magic-y stuff. It's through Summer's eyes that we see hear the Greyjoy people come over the walls. And then Bran wakes up from his like summer dream to Theon in his room being like, I'm the Prince of
Winterfell.
Yep. Theon gets pissed off, kills a few of the of the Winterfell people who speak up. Mikken, Farlin, a few others. The Kennel daughter, Pia, gets raped. Is Pia the one from Paula? Paula gets raped. Pia's the one from Harrenhal. Pia's the one that gets raped in Harrenhal. Peas you don't want to be named P girl.
Definitely P, not a good thing.
Or Westeros, yeah.
Piper.
Yeah. So Theon, as a last-ditch effort, once he knows, he calls Asha. Asha comes up. She's like, you're an idiot. He kills the whole, like, they escape. He kills the fake Brandon Rickon, hangs him up. A lot of people buy it. Asha buys it. Asha gives him only 10 people, and he realizes, I'm not getting any more than this, and everyone's coming to fuck my shit up. So, as a last-ditch effort, he sends Reek off. I can get you 200 men. I used to know some people around here.
Oh,
he's
great.
Like, all right, fine. You're not going to do me any good if you're here anyway, so might as well. And he comes back with an army and somehow pops off and does some damage to the Northmen outside.
Kills everybody.
Roderick, R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. Roderick. And Theon's story ends with kind of like he's in a Davos situation. Like, all his people are dying around him, and it doesn't look good. His horse
is on fire.
Yeah, so...
Well, he did it himself. So, I mean, you skimmed it, but, like, Reek turns out to be Ramsay Bolton, the bastard Bolton.
Oh, yep.
And he kills not only the Northmen, but he kills all of Theon's men and burns
the biggest
castle
plot
to the
twist
ground.
of the century.
Yeah.
What a great little fucking pull the wool over your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, how would anybody know who he was?
That's what I'm
right?
saying. Like
I
that's the
have no
greatest part
idea.
about this time period is you got no pictures, probably.
You don't
Like,
have a
even
photo
if you
ID.
did. Yeah.
And we find out some of that little bit of last stuff in the end of the Bran chapter, which we just did. Yeah, where he emerges and kind of sees the aftermath. Everything's all fucked up, and he goes north. So
And Mirkon goes northeast.
yeah. So last we saw Theon he was in the middle of a shitstorm and his horse was on fire. And last we see Bran is he's going north. So what do you think's going on with those two, Kyle?
So I think Theon tries to run to his sister, but I think he's not going to find any love there. So
Okay.
I have no idea. That's a good question.
Sister just dunks on him, says fuck
I think
you.
she's going to dunk on him, but I guess he gets inside. Otherwise he's pretty screwed. I don't know. Maybe he tries to join the wall. It's the only other option. I don't see that being a Theon thing, though. Although he was almost there with Maester Lewin. Yeah, Lewin almost talked him into it. So,
but Lewin's got a spear in his back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, like I said, I mean, Theon might go hang out with his buddy John. I thought he was Rob's friend more than anything, though. So I don't know. Like I said, I think the sister thing is where I'm at. Tries to meet up with his sister, obviously.
So last two people, let's talk about Sansa and Tyrion, who Tyrion, I think, is the GOAT of the book.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. He's your favorite story?
It's a lot of chapters, but the story is like you get to see him playing politics, and you got the chain and the wildfire, and you can see the buildup of the Blackwater, and then him on the Blackwater, and then him without a face. It's just a pretty cool.
Yeah, and I would agree
transition.
that's kind of the crux of my original argument, right? Of this book having a build up and a turning point and all that. It does all revolve around Tyrion and his plans.
Here's where I'm gonna take a weird stance on this. I think that Tyrion is pretty much just like the cat. Like he's the fly on the wall.
No, come on. He's a
King's
player.
Landing,
He's playing.
He's the straw that stirs the drink.
Well, sure, he's doing a lot of stuff, but in terms of like conflict, right? Like Kat has way more conflict than Tyrion does. Her husband just died. Her eldest son is off like in
What does
war.
conflict have to do with this? I mean,
well, I mean, like if you're talking about like a story, right? If you're just gonna read all the Cat chapters or just gonna read
Tyrion's
all the whatever,
in a war.
I'm saying Tyrion's is good, right? But Tyrion is like his chapters give you the action that
Tyrion's
drives.
sister hates him. She's also the queen.
yeah. I think the cool thing about Tyrion is that he's been shit on his whole life, and now he's the hand of the king. So, like,
Was the hand of the king. We didn't go through his recap, but he ends where he's not the hand of the king.
without a nose.
I think for some of those reasons, some of the stuff that I think happens with Tyrion going forward is kind of more interesting to him personally because of this. Like, he doesn't have many to your point, like, yeah, the world hates him and now he's the hand of the king, but what is his conflicts in this one? It's pretty much Shay, right? The stuff going on with Shay and Ali
Dealing with
is like,
his sister, dealing with Joffrey.
and I'm not saying that's boring, that's interesting. And yeah, but in terms of, I think a lot of the cool stuff that happens in Tyrion chapters is him just doing cool stuff, but like him sending Janos Slynt to the wall is badass, but like
cool chapter. Yeah, exactly.
it's not like impacting there's no inner conflict with Tyrion there. He's just like, wow, you murdered children, get the fuck out of here. Where Theon is more like,
I don't know. You
everything is
definitely see more with like as the Tasha. Is it Tasha?
Huh?
Tosh. What was his first wife's name?
Taisha.
Taisha.
Yeah.
You learn more of that inner conflict of him actually.
I love the Tyrion chapters. I'm not saying I don't love the Tyrion chapters. I'm just saying, like, if you're taking one character's like
Fuck
story
Cat.
arc in this book, I think
Fuck Cat.
Theon.
Dude, Cat doesn't do
beats Tyrion.
shit. Don't give me that.
Tyrion's probably my favorite chapter.
Hey,
I just think Theon has the
Can
best
you
story.
can you do
in this book.
start the recap where we can match the other ones? Then we can get into this for the people.
Shows up on Joffrey's name day.
Yep.
Has the paper from his daddy that he's the hand. Cersei doesn't like that.
Yeah, a lot of council chambers.
Yeah.
He gets to King's Landing. He sends Janos to the wall. They get the letter from Stannis about, because that's the prologue, right? Is Stannis creating this letter where he's telling everyone about Joffrey.
Yep.
They get that letter. Then there is some great chapters, right? Like he does the thing where he tells Littlefinger, Varys, and Pycelle each a different thing. I'm sending Marcella to Dorne. I'm sending Marcella to the Eyrie. I'm sending Tommen. Where's he sending Tommen? He tells each one of them that he's going to marry one of the children off somewhere else and just like waits and sees what Cersei gets mad about.
Yeah, it's
Turns
cool.
out Pycelle's the rat.
Cool change.
So that's one of the things he does. He meets with the pyromancers. We hear about him meeting with the people with the chain. He gives Cersei laxatives the one day so that he can take Cleos and send her back. He kind of make the terms with River Run. He does a lot of politicking.
He's playing with Wildfire.
Wildfire, the chain, gets Lancel on his side. There's the whole plan to send Tommen out of the city for the battle. He intercepts that, takes control of Tommen, right? Cersei was sending him out. He does that. Then he gets 2 chapters actually in the battle. And then there's the chapter after the battle. And there's a chapter in there where he sticks up for Sansa, right? Sansa's getting her like clothes ripped off by Joffrey, and Tyrion stands up for her. So
smacks him.
Yeah, awesome. Again, awesome chapters. I'm not saying bad chapters by any means. I'm just saying if you look at his actual story, like his conflict, this book, not that good. There's books where he has more inner conflict.
I think the thing that would push him over the top is just his number of chapters.
He has a lot of chapters.
Yeah, so 15, I mean, like right? That of course it's the main story. Of course it's the one that stands out to you, right? Like,
yeah, I would say after that, I like Arya a lot. I think Arya is a little badass girl running through the woods and shit. Like, she's got a pretty cool story too.
Yeah, I've known you liked Arya, so I mean, I could see that. Like, that's a good plot line, and I think part of the reason you like this part though is probably because you know where it ends, right? Like, you know what this set off. Like, something about Jaqen we didn't talk about. He gave her a coin and like was like, come find me at some point. Yeah. And so now she has this coin. So who knows?
It's crazy. Let me just say this right now. It's crazy how much book we actually have to go through yet with Kyle.
Well, there's 3 more.
That's fucking crazy. There's 3 more fucking books. It's crazy.
So last POV to go through, just look at it real quick, is Sansa. So her start off, we said it, Joff's birthday tournament. And I think Sansa, before we do it, I think Sansa might be up there with like number 2 for like most interesting stories this book, right? She's going through hell.
Sansa's going through it, that's for sure.
She's not out either.
Yeah. And who is out, and one of the fan questions is about this person, so I'll bring this person up before we even start the Sansa stuff, is the Hound. Because there's a lot of Sansa Hound stuff in this book. And even in the last book, right? There's some of it at the hands turn.
Yeah, they have a weird relationship for sure. He like confides in her with weird stuff.
Yeah. So yes, basically what happens with her, this book is, it starts off with the name day tourney where she saves Dantos, right? And then that kicks off this whole Dantos thing where she starts meeting with Dantos.
This whole plot that Dantos is going to free her, but they need a big event to do it.
And they keep getting news of different stuff throughout basically about the war, and Joffrey blames Sansa for it. Battle of Oxcross, Robb wins.
Anything Robb does well is Sansa's trading fault.
She also has her first period this book, which is a big thing for her. Her and Cersei have a talk about that. Then it's basically battle time for her. She has a couple chapters during the battle too where she's in with Cersei.
Stuck in a chamber.
One before the battle where she has to kiss Joffrey's sword.
Keeping it all together.
Yep. And then she runs into the Hound at the end of that.
In her own bed.
In her bed. We see the Hound in the battle with Tyrion. He was supposed to be like leading sorties and was kicking ass. We saw him from Davos's point of view on a boat. But yeah, he has kind of lost his nerve a little bit by the time Tyrion sees him.
Too much fucking fire, man.
Yeah, and seems to be gone.
And there's one more big Sansa chapter too, right?
Yep, at the end, the council after, where everybody's coming in and getting their awards, praises, or some people come in and are told to pledge fealty and don't, and start bitching at Joffrey. He smashes down and cuts himself on the throne.
And then Tywin sits on it. Not on the top, but he sits on it.
Not on the top, at the bottom, yep.
And there's a new marriage proposal.
Whatever her name is that from the south.
Marjorie. Sansa's safe until she talks to Dantos, and he's like, no, you're fucked.
This is even worse.
He's still going to do whatever he wants with you.
Yeah. Now you don't even get the title of queen, so good job.
But we are actually going to get you out of here, and it's going to be on
the wedding day.
Wedding day. Yep. All right. So yeah, what do we think as Tyrion Sansa predictions, Kyle? I guess for final predictions for the last 2 characters.
I don't think Sansa gets out of here.
King's Landing forever.
Or the Hound. She does get out. Things are going real bad. She meets up with the Hound, and then maybe they end up, switching sides. But I don't see the Hound just giving up his post on Joffrey like that much, like completely to fight against him. I don't know if that's the case, but who knows? That's where I'm at. And while we're talking about Knights on the Run, or the Hound isn't a knight, but Barristan as well. I still want to see him come back.
Yeah, that's true. He was brought up a few times. Renly and Kat talked about him.
I mean, obviously, I want him to come back on the. I mean, we're reading from the Starks' point of view, so they're the good guys, right? So, like, you want them on your side.
It's objective or subjective.
I don't hate Stannis either. if he's still out there kicking.
I understand, but that's what I'm saying is like, because you're reading from their point of view, like you want your guys
Reading
to win.
from everybody's point of view, though.
Yeah. You're in from Tyrion's point of view.
Yeah, but Tyrion kind of seems like a piece of shit. Like the way the other guys are written, I feel like are written that they're the bad people, right? Like, because so far we have the Starks who are like, this is the rule. Here's how to be a just leader. You got to be a good leader. And then you got Tyrion, you know, making backroom deals and burning people like his own guys to death and shit. And like,
yeah, Tyrion is more at any means necessary. Not quite,
and
but a little bit.
The Starks are obviously the good guys, quote unquote.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying, Kyle.
So some of the questions about this was, where did the Hound go? Because you kind of were talking about that. And she thinks you might have answered this.
Where did the Hound go? I don't know where he would go. Maybe try and meet up with his brother. But I don't think he likes his brother, right?
He doesn't seem to like his brother. And you kind of gave it like a maybe prediction when you said maybe him and if Sansa does escape, they'll meet up together, which leads into the next question. Do you think Sansa is more likely to escape, be dead, or be wed by the end of the Storm of Swords? Which I think is an interesting, like, pointed multiple choice question.
Well, so I don't know much about Marjorie is the one downfall here. So like I said, I don't know much about her other than she had another short-lived marriage rather.
Yeah.
So what's the chance of her having two like that? I don't know. It seems like her family is well situated.
So you're thinking wed to Joffrey?
Yeah, wedding Joffrey, exactly.
Gotcha.
So like that's why I'm kind of explaining why I'm knocking some of these off here, right?
I was kind of pointing out that Joffrey isn't the only bachelor in the city, without being too pointed about it.
Who are you talking about?
I'm just saying, like, Sansa potentially is like if for whatever reason they'd want to marry her to Joffrey, they might want to marry her to anybody else.
Who's gonna want her to marry her to anybody else?
Lancel. I think Lancel wed to
he just got
Tyrek.
Didn't he just get? Oh, Lancel.
He got fucked up, but
not,
Tyrek got wed to or betrothed to like a really, really young girl.
Yeah, it was like
that's why they call him
a
but like
baby.
just anything like that, like a cousin Lannister, or you know what I mean?
I don't see why they would be like, yeah, so we're gonna just marry her to a lesser one.
I got you. I was just saying.
I mean, maybe
like Horace or Hobber. Why not? We need an alliance, right? I don't know. Again, I don't know how valuable a traitor's daughter
I'm gonna
is,
go with what was not fled. Was fled the correct one? The first
escaped, dead.
Fled. They should have used fled, dead, or wed.
Fled, dead, wed.
Whoever that was, you missed an opportunity.
Missed opportunity there.
It was a good try, but
good question though. We appreciate it.
I like the hot buy question better.
I'm gonna go with fled. I mean, that was my original prediction, so I'm gonna stick with that.
Okay. And they meets up with the Hound.
Like dead, I don't see how she's good dead. Like I kind of what I said about Jamie. Like she's too important. I was knocking my non-choices off.
Somebody's got to start dying around here. If somebody just doesn't start dying around here, I quit.
It could be all of them, right? She could get wed, then flee, then die. All by the end of this.
Nelson
She could die, then get wed, then get fled.
You heard her first.
She just can't die first. Die just has to be last, pretty much. The other ones can happen in any order. So yeah, Jeff, did you have any of these questions for the fans that you wanted to read?
All right, this is kind of a cool one. Well, I think the last one's pretty good from Emma, but I want to talk about Arya real quick. So you remember Arya has her list of names. All right, she's kind of knocked a couple off. Do you think she knocks another one off soon, or who's next?
So who else is on the list? I think is where I'd have to start, because like I don't think she's going for the Mountain, Cersei. Like I don't think she's getting any of them yet.
The big names, Joffrey.
There was some low hanging fruit though.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like who's lower?
Gregor, Dunson, Polliver, Chiswick.
Hang on.
Who I think is
Gregor.
I think
that's the Mountain. Yeah, I don't think that.
Dunson.
That's
Polliver.
Dunson and Polliver are like low level.
The Mountain boys. Yeah. Yep. Raft, the Sweetling, the Tickler.
They're mountains. Yep.
The Hound, Sir Amory. He got eaten by a bear. Sir Ilan Payne, Sir Meryn Trant, King Joffrey, Queen Cersei.
Who's Meryn Trant again?
One of the King's
Guard.
He's
the one with Syrio.
Okay. I mean, there's a couple that are the Mountains men, but like, so if she's gonna kill any, that's where I'm gonna put her. But I mean, they're still probably gonna be close to the Mountain. So She's definitely not ready to deal with him. Like nobody else in the realm is. Why would she be?
David and Goliath.
She needs to level up a few more times.
Yeah. Like I know Jeff, but like she has a year of training and that was it. She's killed like a stable boy and like who else? Like she killed the guard, I guess, but he was like not expecting it at all.
Great little coin flip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
maybe the Malin wants that coin. Maybe that's her signature.
So Jeff, I DM'd you something that I think that is kind of along what we're talking about now.
Yeah, I see it.
There's really nothing about this that we get more information of ever, really, right?
You've told me that, so I'm going to trust your better judgment.
I don't think there's ever anything that lends more to this theory. People just think it's a possibility because of where we've kind of seen these characters left off. People think that because we don't see Sirio die, right? Like Arya just like runs away. And then Arya, the next book, meets this new mentor, Jaqen H'ghar, who's really good at killing people and has the ability to change his face, right? We see him change like what his face looks like at the end before he walks off. People think somehow that's the same person. He changed his face before he somehow ends up in that cage. Again, it doesn't really make sense.
So you're saying it's Sirio?
That's a theory. Yeah, that's kind of something I'm proposing.
It's possible. I could see that as being possible. Why not? Like you said, like so he gets out of that room. Although Maren Trant,
and he has to get in the black cells. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like when me and Nelson had like a long discussion about if this was actually possible, and I'm hoping that Maren Trant still being alive was a reason I said I don't think it's possible.
Yeah. It definitely leans to hit Sirio for sure being dead.
But at the same time, like, I mean, maybe he, killed everybody else and escaped out the back window or something stupid. Like, it's possible, but
yeah, knocked him out.
And then the black cells thing, like, all he really had to do is show up for the Night's Watch. And I think he could talk his way into something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but he's in that cage with Biter and Rorg. He seems to have like some, again, like, maybe he is just like we've talked about this too. Like, is Jaqen just like intimidating Rorg and Biter? Because they seem more intimidating than him. Like, why do they not just fuck him up in that cage?
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like maybe he had them like opened it up and had them, accept him in as a cage member.
Well, what I was saying is I think people who don't think this, which I think is most people don't buy, they think it's a possibility, but they don't quite buy it, right? I think one thing they would say is it seems like Jaqen, Rorg, and Biter know each other
for longer than
they've been in the cage for longer than
they've been in the black cells together. They maybe got to the black cells together somehow.
Yeah,
right?
We do know Arya's been running around Flea Bottom for a little bit though. Like
the other thing that's just kind of funny, I don't think it's intended, I might have already mentioned it, is Jaqen H'ghar was in the black cells and then he gives Arya this like coin that's apparently supposed to be like special. Like, where did he get that? Unless he got it.
How did he have that on his person?
It was in his butthole.
I knew that's what you were going with too.
Or something too, or
yeah. I don't think it really matters, but people just kind of like joke that Jaqen gave Arya a butthole coin.
I knew you were going to say that.
So yeah, I think that's just again, that's one of the cool like little theory things that it's weird because I wasn't a book fan as these books came out. I don't know what theories, like when certain theories like
popped out,
you know what I mean? Like got introduced and they would be like good to introduce to Kyle, because some stuff I don't want to like hold back because I feel like talking about some of that stupid stuff is kind of like the more interesting.
Yeah. It's fun
parts of the book. Right. Yeah. So
what's the biggest unanswered thing you don't have yet, Kyle? That's you want to know. That was the last.
This kind of goes into my favorite character, and I'll answer them both. I guess is the whole Jon Snow and what's going on up north. Like, we know nothing about that mess up there. Even like the Mance Raider side of it. Like,
what's their whole
like,
objective?
Before, yeah. What were they digging for? What did they find? What's going on? Like, I think that's what I'm most ready for.
Glow would agree with you,
and I would put Jon at the top here. Like, I mean, I think that's it's just a cool environment that he's out in, and like there was a climbing chapter, and a
lot of adversity for a young boy.
Yeah, the fist, some sweet mountains.
So yeah, let's go for some of the more basic ones. I guess like we kind of talked about it, and maybe this is the same thing, but I don't think it necessarily has to be. Favorite character, most interesting storyline. Are you saying Jon's favorite character? Or most interesting?
Probably the favorite character.
Favorite character? And so then I guess, would you agree that he also, within just this book too, not the whole first two, who has the most interesting story? Kind of like what Jeff and I were arguing about earlier.
Well, and that would be John, I guess, and that's kind of why he's my favorite character. I think I was
Gotcha.
Yeah.
This might go on the same thing, so and don't feel like influenced.
Bronn wasn't in this one enough, so
I think Tyrion has a pretty cool book 1 to book 2. He goes to the wall, he gets captured, taken to the Vale, and then he's in the battle. Then he is
for sure.
I think his track is pretty cool.
So this might go on to might just stick with John, but like, which of the POV characters we already have are you most excited to like? I want to read the next John chapter. You know what I mean? Like if you could choose who is the POV for chapter 1, Storm of Swords, who
I think actually Bran probably.
Bran, just because it's the most recent. Where the heck's he gonna go?
Well, yeah, but he also had like his whole life destroyed. He's the only one that knows that everything is destroyed, right?
Yeah.
So like I think that like they don't even have a raven to send out. Like I think he's got some interesting stuff happening.
The other interesting thing about Bran is he's also the only one that knows that he's not dead. Everyone thinks he's dead.
Yeah, true.
It's a pretty big key to know, too.
I reckon, yeah. But same with Arya, right? Like,
yeah.
She had a whole book of being dead.
They've just given up on Arya.
So who knows when Bran tells everybody? Maybe it'll be book 6.
Some of these I think we could probably all answer. Like, who do you think would make the best ruler of Westeros right now? Like, if you could just take anyone and put them on the throne and like kind of not like surround them with their cabinet members and their small council, you know what I mean? Like, what would be the best for Westeros?
She kind of is too hearty, I guess, but like Cat, like leads with her heart. But yeah, I think she's probably the most experienced and most good guysy at this point. Like, I don't think Rob's ready for it. We don't really know him too well, obviously.
I like that answer.
John's way north. Bran's a little boy. Tyrion's got his motives. Littlefinger, Viserys. Like, I mean, who else? Like, the Hound? I mean, even if you want to start going to like weird people,
I'm kind of thinking Stannis, right? Even like no one would be happy except for Stannis.
Yeah.
Even Stannis might not be happy about
That's
it.
fair.
But I think shit would be in line if Stannis was in charge.
Nelson is the biggest Stannis fan.
Which is funny because he's really strict, and I like in real life, like I really don't like people like that.
Put
like,
Dantos.
Bend the rules.
Put
Rules were made
Dantos
to be
on
broken.
the throne for me.
How about Davos?
Davos would do a good job.
Who's
He wouldn't
Dantos?
want it,
I
though.
forget.
The fool.
The drunk one.
Oh,
drunk.
yeah.
The jonquil.
Yeah.
I know this is bad for our podcast, but it's time to put Clash of Kings away and just seeing the difference of the spine of the two we've read and the two like the two N ones that I've only read once. Like, it's fucking crazy. The beating that these have gone through.
Yeah, mine's eating it a little here. This Erica read these.
One thing I want to see is, and again, I think I know Jeff's answer and Kyle's answer might be the same thing. If you could have what POV if you could get a new POV?
I like this question a lot. I don't
POV.
even know why you would say that you knew mine, because I don't even know if I know mine.
Patch face. No.
I do know
before.
mine, actually. I do
You
know
said
mine.
before a few.
There's a few that I would like.
I think I would pick the Hound or Bronn.
The Hound would be a really cool one that I was
Neither
thinking about.
two that I would pick, but
I said Patch Face originally. I think he would be a good one too.
I heard that.
Yeah.
just
It would
singing
just
in
not make
rhymes
sense.
all the
No,
time.
it would be all like perfect and like real high level, super deep thinking, but he would just not make sense when he talked to anybody.
That would be interesting.
And he's like trapped in his body.
Same with Hodor. He's just like has really intricate thoughts. They're just like Hodor.
I would take a Hodor POV.
Hodor would be a good one. No. Like in this last book, I mean, he's dead now, but Corrin would have been. I think Corrin would have been a really cool one for the last book. I think Mormont or somebody like that.
Who's Corrin?
Half hand. He wasn't in it long enough.
Yeah, but just like to see what he was. I want to know what he was.
I wanted to
all
see.
book.
I actually would like to go backwards and see Rob's POV for this book.
I think
Rob is who I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah.
Rob
is one that I thought you were
Rob
gonna
is
say.
a good one, but he did a lot of cool shit in this. Like, I want to see the Whispering Woods and
I feel like Blackfish would be, if I could get somebody, Blackfish would be like my person near Rob that I would want to POV from that's not Rob, because he is pretty much like near with Rob a lot.
Blackfish would be another good king, I think. He'd
probably be a good
like
king
he's
too,
a good
yeah.
dude.
Littlefinger, good POV.
Roose Bolton should be king, I think. Ramsay Bolton.
Roose Bolton could be a cool POV too, because
Yeah.
he's kind of been like separated. Good POVs are kind of like separated from the other POVs.
Yeah.
That way you're learning stuff about the story. But like, yeah. So we'll do favorite location. That we can do this for everyone. Favorite location we've seen so far. I'll say Probably not favorite, but I'll say a cool one that we've seen just while you guys are thinking that we saw this book for the first time was Pike. Like all the islands that like, you have to cross the bridges to get to.
Yeah, Pike's pretty cool. That's a cool place, treacherous place. Kind of the same thing. And like I said earlier, I'm intrigued by the environment up here, but like the fist, like I think that's a cool.
Yeah, the Fist of the First Men. Yeah, it's a cool spot.
I mean, part just above the north, like Crasher's Keep. That's interesting. Maybe not cool, but it's like holy fuck! Like this is the weirdest place we've probably been to.
Yes, for sure.
I mean the House of Undying too.
Yeah, House of the Undying. That's weird. Castles wise, Storm's End and Harrenhal probably. And then the last 2 questions, I guess, would just be who do you think is going to be? This was a Kyle only. Who would you think is going to be the most likely person to die, like character to die in Storm of Swords?
Juicy.
Not necessarily POV, just like a bigger someone we know their name of. And I don't even know off the top of my head. I'm not sure, but.
Okay, so sorry, forgive my pause here, but I need to think. Like there's way too many characters.
Throw a dart at the board, and
so I got 2 actually, and I think Stannis and Tywin. Okay. I think or one of them is gonna go.
I like it.
All right.
And then the last one is kind of a jokey one. What's everybody's favorite ship from the book?
Nelson, you're the only one that remembered all the fucking boats.
If anyone can't even name a ship, I'll be happy.
Fury. I like Fury.
There you go. There you go. Fury.
I get win because I named the ship first.
Robert's ballsack.
Robert's hammer.
Robert's hammer. I knew it was a dick named one.
Black Beth has Davos's. Foam Drinker would be probably my favorite name from this book, and that's Dagmar Cleftjaw.
Foam Drinker's a good one.
Foam Drinker, because it's like beer, right, and sea foam. And I think this last question might be kind of, I don't know. I think I know what you're gonna say. Most unexpected / shocking moment or death in the book. Maybe moment and death should be different because I feel like death. There's one very shocking death above the rest.
And I think that it might be because I forget another one, but Lewin is up there for sure.
I was thinking Renly.
Renly is another up there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I will agree. I'm
all right. Cool.
Like I said, I think I liked Lewin more than I liked Renly, so like that one hurt me a little more.
All right. Well, unless you got some final thoughts, Kyle, we can leave it there. Pretty long episode. I mean,
doesn't care about my final thoughts. Fuck
or
you.
Jeff.
Just going back to like the whole like which book is better. It's hard for me to tell. Like I think this one it's a little bit longer, I would say. Like some of the chapters are a little bit longer. I feel like the first book's pace was better. So I think this one just like that point is like, come on, get to the fucking Blackwater already. Like that's kind of what I felt like in the middle. Like let's get to the end. Where like the first one I was cool with reading. So I think I like the first one better, but there's definitely some major high points in this one.
I think that's something that definitely takes away. So people who don't like, again, I think most people who like these series like all the books, but when they say like this is my least favorite, they still like it. But the reason it's people's least favorite and is because of that, because like there's stuff there's like longer periods where nothing's happening because the way we read it, like even if there's 2 chapters where there's not as much happening, it's 2 weeks for us. So we're kind of used to going long periods without stuff happening. So maybe that's not as big of an impact for us. But yeah, like I wonder, like Kyle, do you think you'd ever go? This is something I've wondered. Do you think you'd ever go back and like read these books at a normal pace, just to like?
I've had a hard time reading lately outside of this.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. Like I just can't make myself do it. I've been trying to, but I can't.
It'd be really interesting if you went back and read the first one again.
I was thinking that, Jeff. I was like thinking like, what if like. It might like because you're probably gonna forget so much stuff like by the time we're even now, right?
For sure,
from like early book 1.
I'm still forgetting
or
stuff.
like by the time we're done book 4, how much of book 1 are we gonna like? I'll remember everything because I'll probably reread book 1 recently by then. But you know what I mean.
You're a psycho
for sure. Yeah, no, you're right, and it might be worth a reread. I don't know that I would though at this time.
Yeah, I was just more like thinking like it would be interesting to see like to get a perspective of someone because I bet you there's very few people who have read. These 2 books over the course of 3 years at this point that we've read them, like, you know what I mean? At this slow of a pace.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so cool. Thanks. Again, thanks everyone for listening.
Bye.
We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks to fans who wrote in. You guys are the real ones.
What's the next one going to be? The prologue of Storm of Swords?
So before we sign off, my final thing is I have heard from Erica. I think she thinks that one is the worst. The next one.
Ooh.
So,
Ooh, really?
We'll see.
I have no clue what goes on in this
I think
book.
one of them, it was towards the beginning. It was either this one we just read or the next one. And I'm pretty sure she said it was the next one. It just was so slow, or like so many names, and was so confusing.
I'll tell you now, the chapters double in size.
Yeah, they get longer. I don't think quite yet. This next book
they do.
This next book has the most chapters. It has 82, so it has 10 more chapters than the book that we just did. But I don't think they get too long. The book after that has has half as many chapters, and it's like about the same length. So that's when they double.
Always been kind of interested why she hated it so much too. So I am looking forward to it in a little sense.
Yeah, because I love listening to like basically like the podcast we just recorded. I listen to anyone who puts a podcast like this out. I listen to it. I love listening to people's thoughts on reading these books the first time. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that the third one is their least favorite. So not everyone puts it at number 1, but it's like 1 or 2 for most people.
All right.
So yeah, I'm interested to see what you think about it.
All right.
I'm interested to get in it. So we'll see you guys in that one next book.
All right.
Thanks for everyone who's listening, and see you in the next one.
Later, nerds.